Yeah, well,
Thank you.
thank you, Maureen. Actually, those conversations we were having before, I would really like just to sit and share stories about where we've been and what we've done, because that's more fun, right? That's the exciting part. I am Lisa Sympson. I am the Director of Tour and Travel at Van Galder. So has anybody been on a Van Galder trip before? There you go. Van Galder, there's some, well, I'll grab one. There's some tour guides over here. I think if you live in Janesville, you know that Van Galder goes back and forth to the airport, right? We do that 20 times a day. We also offer a tour and travel service. So what we do is put together vacations, and you can just sign up and get a seat. Maybe not everybody knows that we don't just do bus trips. So we do cruises, we do flyaway trips, we do one-day bus trips, and we do multiple-day bus trips. So they're all in here. Take a look if you want. I have been with Van Galder for 4 years. I did not start in the travel industry. I was not a travel agent before this all started. So I am not going to talk about like travel agent kind of stuff because that's not what I do. But I am somebody who has had the good fortune in my career to have to travel a lot for work and been able to travel a little bit with my family. With some little kids, with some big kids, with my mom and my dad. So I kind of understand how it works. And it's something that I love to do. And so getting to work with Van Galder and getting to put these trips together has been a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about random, to be honest with you, some random tips and tricks for what I think about maybe when I start a trip. How do you plan for it? Because what I find is the questions we get are they're not questions about, what am I going to see in this location or how am I going to get there? It's more about the planning and what do I pack and how does the airport work and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not saying that my suggestions are the end-all be-all because they're not. They're what work for me. But I'm guessing that some of you that have traveled are going to have just great suggestions as well. So I encourage you to back and forth. If you have some things that have worked for you, let's talk about those because I'd love to hear them. Because I'm betting there are some of you that are much more well-traveled than I am. So I would love to hear that. And let's see if I can make all this work. So what we're going to talk about is the planning process. Setting your goals and your expectations for your trip, whether of course, if you come with me, I like to think that I take care of some of that for you. You don't have to worry too much about it, but you're going to want to travel on your own because you're going to want to go places we don't go, and so that's what that is. Packing, what to bring and what not to, and actually the second part of that sometimes I think is more important than the first part, and then some tips at the end. So that's where we're going to go. This is what I like to think I look like when I travel, that I've got it all together and I sashay into the airport and everybody goes, oh, she knows what she's doing. The reality is that's usually probably more accurate. Travel is hard. Getting through the airport is hard. Getting to your destination is hard. It's a long day. It is, being away from home is difficult. You don't have everything at your fingertips. It can be a challenge sometimes. And there is the opportunity for you to get more wrapped up in the challenge of the actual traveling part that you get so wrapped up in it that you forget to enjoy what's actually happening. And so I'm going to maybe remind you of that a little bit as we go. All right, these are my 3 golden rules. Expect the unexpected. You are always going to stumble upon something good or something bad, and usually both, that you didn't plan for. I have 4 tour planners that sit back in our offices and put those trips together. I can't even tell you the level of detail they go through to try and make sure that every minute of that day is planned and that we are going to be able to have a successful and wonderful trip. How many bathroom stalls are there at the restaurant? How far is it from the front door to the bathroom? Are there any steps to get in? What's on the menu? Is it gluten-free? What is your vegan option? I mean, we go through it all, literally, detailed, very detailed. It doesn't matter how much we think we know before the trip leaves. I guarantee you that something will happen that we could not have possibly predicted. The plumbing, something happened and the plumbing went down and the bathroom that we thought was going to be available right inside the front door is no longer available and you're going to have to walk downstairs to get there. You know what I mean? We're flying into Washington, D.C. or New York City. We planned the trip 18 months ago. We had absolutely no way to know that a water main was going to break and that the whole street is shut down and I can't drop you at the front door of the place that I thought I was going to drop you at because it's unpredictable. Not only do we plan that far in advance, but we're checking in every, it's longer at the beginning and shorter at the end, but a week before, we're circling back to every single place that we've talked to saying, is this all still good? And there's no guarantee that on that day they couldn't get lettuce from their supplier and the salads are out the window. It just happens. So expect it. But it can also work in your favor. We were talking a little bit beforehand, Maureen was saying that she went up to the Iditarod and she ended up in Anchorage, and out the hotel window there was a whole winter carnival, winter festival happening that she had no idea about, and she got to go in, wander in, and take in some of that, didn't know it ahead of time. Those little surprises can really be a great part of the trip. So expect it and go with it. Embrace what happens, right? And it is all about the journey. So again, getting there and doing the thing that you want to see, getting to Washington, D.C. and seeing the Vietnam Memorial is super important. Being there, feeling those feelings, it's a moving and wonderful place. It's great. But it's also about taking the bus into D.C. and noticing how many other people are at the wall, noticing how that whole city is arranged around those memorials and how many people are at the memorials and how important it is and how people respond. It's all about what's happening around you too. So I encourage you to take a step back and watch all of it because it's not just standing there looking at the Vietnam Memorial Wall that you're going to remember. It's going to be all that other stuff too. And no matter what happens, it all makes a good story. So if you've traveled a lot, there are the trips that went perfectly and that were easy and that you saw what you wanted to see, those aren't the stories you tell, I'm willing to bet. It's the story about the disaster that happened or it's the story about that surprise thing that happened and how you persevered that make it through. I was in New Orleans the year before Katrina during a hurricane named Ivan. We were scheduled for a conference. We flew down knowing that there was weather, but we didn't, you had to proceed. We didn't know what was going to happen. We got there, opening night happened, and all heck broke loose the next day. They evacuated the city. Everybody was required to get out. We were stuck. The airport couldn't get us out. So we did what they call evacuating up, because in New Orleans it's below sea level, so you evacuate high. So we were stuck in our hotel. They gave us flashlights. They gave us instructions for how to fill the bathtub because when the electricity went out, there'd be no water, and the whole nine. And we were there for an extra, I think it was 6 or 7 days, sleeping with one eye open, trying to figure out how bad this was going to be. And when Katrina happened the next year, I was sort of like in shell shock, thinking, oh my gosh. As it turned out, it was 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it was a good spring day here, and we wouldn't have thought about it twice. But with a hurricane, it's not like a tornado. You don't know what's going to happen. You have to plan for it. So I don't ever tell any story about what actually happened at that trip or at that show that I was there for, that conference. The story I tell is about being in New Orleans during hurricane and how amazing it was, how I got to see that whole process fold out, and how we did get a couple people out on these sort of contraband rides, and how I couldn't get to the airport, and how, thank goodness, we had a deck of cards in our backpack because we needed them, and how the hotel ran out of liquor, and all that stuff, which is true, by the way. Even in New Orleans. So setting goals and expectations. This is the planning part. We work primarily with seniors. Our trips are not 100% geared towards seniors. Anybody can join us. We love to have anyone. But this one comes up for us quite a bit. Make your travel planner or your hotel or your airline or your restaurant or whoever it is that you're dealing with, make them aware of any accommodations that you need. Because generally, we can work around anything. If you want a hotel room on a low floor, if you are gluten-free, if you aren't sure if you need maybe a little help to get to the gate because you're not quite sure how far it is at the airport from check-in to your actual gate, we can arrange for a wheelchair. Make those things known. Don't be shy about that. Don't be embarrassed by any of those things. It makes your day so much easier, and it's so much easier to do it on the front end than to arrive to the airport and say, oh my gosh, I really need some help because I can't do it. In the end, you want to have a lovely vacation. You want to have a good time, and anything that we can do ahead of time to help you reach that goal, it makes for a better vacation for you. So wheelchair at the airport, an ADA room, they have bigger doorways, they have less stuff to maneuver. You don't necessarily have to be in a wheelchair, but those things are required. Food allergies are big. We deal with this a lot. Most restaurants are perfectly willing to accommodate as long as you let them know. They deal with peanut allergies all the time. They deal with that stuff. So I'm always a little confused when somebody will sign up for the steak dinner and then they say they're a vegetarian, but it happens, and then the hotel will make accommodations, or the restaurant will make accommodations. Pack your sense of adventure. Again, you never know what's going to happen, so this is a must to me. This is a must in setting your goals. And with your sense of adventure, make sure you've got a book, a light jacket, an umbrella, some sunglasses, because you might need them all. You don't know when you're going to get stuck at the airport. You don't know when there's going to be maintenance on the plane and things are going to happen. And you can't do a thing about it. You cannot control the weather and whether or not the plane's going out. You simply can't. So getting all riled up about it and insisting that they take care of you isn't going to help anybody. It's not going to help you get anywhere any faster, to be honest. So make sure that you're set. Make sure that you're ready. In my carry-on, I have a little foldable umbrella, just because I never know when I'm going to need it. I throw a pair of sunglasses in. I don't throw my best sunglasses in because A, I'm going to lose them, or break them. And so, I toss a pair in there because I just never know, and I don't want to be without them. I like a book, an e-reader, whatever it is that you use. Puzzle book, Sudoku, or Word Find, or whatever, something to keep yourself occupied because you just never know when you're going to wait. This is another thing. When you're planning your trip, think about where you're going and what's happening at your destination at that time. Everybody wants to go see the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. because they know that they're supposed to go see the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. It's beautiful. But that is the busiest time to go to Washington, D.C. It's going to be the hardest to get around the city. You're going to stand in line everywhere you go. There's going to be a ton of school kids on their spring break trips. So if those things bother you, cherry blossom time is probably not the best time to go to Washington, D.C. And it's not just those big iconic things like that. It's stuff that you might not think of. When we plan a trip to Nashville, for instance, whether or not it's a home football game matters a great deal. The stadium is right downtown. It's right off Broadway where all the good stuff is happening. On home football weekends, the prices of the hotels go way up. It's harder to get around the city. When the game lets out, because I've been there when this happened, when the game is over, those people all flood on down to Broadway and make getting dinner very difficult. So you got to think about that. One of the things that happened on our, we go to Waco. Any of you HGTV fans, Chip and Joanna Gaines, you know that? Yeah. So we go down to their Magnolia markets. And their location is right next to Baylor University. So not only do we have to watch the Baylor University football schedule, but everything that's going on at the college. Is it their big choral sing weekend where they have the competition and people are coming in from all over town? Is it graduation week? Those things will all drive the costs up. Most hotels, a lot of public transportation, airlines for sure, those are all what we call demand-based pricing. So if they can charge more because it's in demand, they will. So that will drive the cost of your stay up. So think about your calendar and think about their calendar. shoulder season versus peak season. So peak season is the heart of fall color in New England. Historically, it's those, first 3 weeks of October, last maybe week of September into October. Most expensive time to go. I can't guarantee, nobody can guarantee when the leaves will actually change color. It depends on what happened a year ago, right? What the weather's been like. So consider maybe a couple weeks before or a couple weeks after. You might get lucky and see the cherry blossoms. You might get lucky and see the perfect color, but you're certainly going to go for less money. And then tools. What tools do we use for planning? So when we're searching out new locations, we're talking to people. That's the best way to learn anything, I think, is to talk to people. But I also want to make you aware, Google, obviously, you can find everything on Google, right? You can search out anything that you want to know. But when you're on Google, I would suggest that you look to something that we call in the business, I'll give you the lingo, the CVB, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Those are sort of the Chamber of Commerce on steroids, right? For a big city, and it'll have lists upon lists of things to do, and then they'll have categories within there. Things with families, historical, theater. It'll be one place that you can go for the city that will essentially tell you everything there is to do in that city. So there'll be a list of things to do. There'll be a list of events, a calendar of events. So those special festivals or annual happenings, or once a year things, something that just popped up. It's a craft fair, or it's a fishing contest or whatever, depending on where you're going. That'll be in there. It'll have a list of restaurants. It'll tell you, it'll sort the restaurants by, are they expensive restaurants? Are they cheap restaurants? What kind of food are they? You can literally search out kind of everything in that town to do. Same is true for hotels. It'll list all of the hotels. It'll rank them. Usually on most of them, you can rank them by cost, by distance from downtown, whatever it is that your parameter is. And you can find a ton of information. Those sites are designed for people like me to be able to plan, to bring a group to a city, but they're equally valuable and used by the general public. There's just a ton of information out there, and if you don't know to look there, you just don't know to look there. I planned a trip to Nashville with some girlfriends a couple years ago, and I went out to the CVB because I had this job and I knew to do that. And sure enough, we found out that the weekend we were going to be there was an anniversary performance at the Grand Ole Opry, and I can't remember now what it was, 60th or 70th, whatever. That doesn't seem like enough. It was an anniversary. And we had the choice of going on a Friday night to the Opry versus Saturday night, and Saturday night was the performance, the anniversary performance. And I'm not the world's biggest country music fan, but when you're in Nashville and it's something like that, you most certainly have to take advantage of that. So we signed up for that anniversary performance. We went and we had a wonderful time. We saw Carrie Underwood, and we saw Trace Adkins, and we saw, what's the group? Bapa Ooh, Mau Mau, what's that group? Oak Ridge Boys, the Oak Ridge Boys, and we had a great time. And I wouldn't have known it had I not checked that calendar to see what was going on. So I encourage you to do that. And then take advantage of people like us. Now, I would love for you to join us on a trip with us, but if you are planning something on your own and you say, hey, I'm headed to Nashville and I don't know the difference between this hotel and this hotel, or do you recommend we stay downtown, or is it better to stay out by the Opry? If you want to give us a call, I'm happy to share that information too. I'm not saying we're the experts on everything, but I am, if you've got questions, give us a call. Your travel agent will help you as well. They've got a ton of information just because they talk to so many people and do so many things. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give us a buzz. Whoops, that headline didn't come in. There we go. What to bring and what not to. Okay, we're going to change gears here a little bit. Because I used to travel professionally, and I know some of you have. I know you said that your wife was telling tales on you before you walked in, and she said that you are very well traveled. So I know you already know this. when you travel a lot, you try to travel as lightly as possible and get to A to B with as little fuss and muss as possible. In the old days, I would go anywhere for a week, maybe even a week and a half in a carry-on. Like, that was my goal. I didn't ever want to check a bag. I wanted to get in and out of the airport as fast as possible. So I got really good at cramming as much as I could into a carry-on that I could put on the airplane and I would never have to worry. The reality is, after 9/11, things changed and life is just different. I really don't carry on anything anymore. I check it all because it's easier. It's easier than going through TSA. It's just all around easier. But a well-stocked carry-on will get you a lot of places. I check my carry-on is what I do now. I still try to keep my bag small, but I can cram a lot in a carry-on. So I'm going to talk about that. Here's what I recommend. Now, when I say a carry-on, you know what I'm talking about. The little bag that will fit in the overhead bin. It is not just your smallest bag. That's not the definition of a carry-on. The airlines have very strict rules about how big a carry-on is. 21 inches, 19 inches, it depends on the airline. There's a height and a width requirement. You can go to your airline and check and see what their requirements are. Usually when you check in at the airport, there's a little bin that says your bag has to fit inside of there to be able to fit in the overhead bin. There's nothing sillier to me than you see the guy come on with a ginormous duffel bag and he traipses down the aisle on the plane and he tries to cram it in that bin when there's no room. Like, that just drives me bananas. You knew before you got on that it wasn't going to fit in there, but whatever. So usually they're on they're on little rollers, handle collapses. Everybody's is black. Every single person's is black. So be aware of that. Yours is going to look like everybody else's. And again, I'm checking mine, so mine comes off the wheel. But that's what I'm talking about. As far as identifying your bag, because they are all black, I am saying put your identification on the outside. There's usually a little pocket for your business card or a piece of paper that's got your name and address on it. Also put it on the inside. I think that's wise. You never know when that one on the outside is going to come off. And mark it somehow, like with a ribbon. I have a turquoise ribbon with white polka dots on it. Just tie it on. When you get to the airport on the carousel, you'll see some very elaborate ribbons on handles of bags. That's fine. Mine is just a little ribbon to identify my black bag compared to everybody else's black bag. What you should put in the carry-on is a phone charging cord. You all have cell phones, or most of you probably have cell phones. Those of us who live with them can't live without them. It's the one thing that I probably forget more often than not at my house, and I have to, after I pulled out of the driveway, I have to turn around and go back and get it because you need it. And don't put it in your checked bag because that goes off and you may never see it again. Put that in your carry-on bag. Keep that with you. Sometimes I pack two because I'm afraid I'm going to lose one. Emergency OTCs, over-the-counter medications. I never want to get caught where I need something and I can't get it. When you're in a city, when you're not, like if you're on a bus trip with us and you just can't hop in your car and run to the Walgreens, I find this to be helpful. What I do is I am a terrible traveler in that I have motion sickness very, very badly. My husband's joke is that he took me for a ride in a combine once, which if you've ever been in a combine, goes at about 2 miles an hour, right? I got car sick in a combine. That's me. I have to travel with Dramamine. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have to travel with Dramamine. It comes, I can buy it in these little tubes, little hard plastic tubes. I don't know if you've seen them, and they stack the pills in there. There's maybe 10 or 12. Because I buy so much Dramamine, I have lots of these little tubes. I stuff this other stuff inside those little plastic tubes because it keeps it contained and it's easy. I always travel with some kind of pain reliever. For me, it's an ibuprofen, an Imodium or an antidiarrheal because you just never know, and you don't want to get stuck when you need it, right? I include my Dramamine, of course, and I always include Benadryl. I don't think I'm allergic to anything, but you never know when something might set you off or might set somebody else off, to be honest, and they're little teeny tiny things. So those are the 4 things that I carry. I do not take my vitamins. I do not take any of that extra stuff that I don't need on a trip. I figure I can get by for a couple days without it, and it's just something I have to worry about and pack, and it's just not worth it to me. But those things I always have in my bag. A light jacket or a cardigan. This little black cardigan, I wore this today on purpose. I have probably 10 of these. I have ones with full long sleeves. I have different materials. I have different weights. I pack 2 or 3 of them on every trip because they will get you anywhere, ladies. You can go out to dinner and dress it up. You can make it the thing you wear on the plane because it's cold on the plane or the bus. It'll take you anywhere. It'll take you absolutely anywhere. So a cardigan, I recommend it. Or a light jacket, something that can do some double duty. I tend to stick, I love your black blazer, I tend to stick with something kind of plain colored that I can dress up or dress down because, again, it's going to serve multiple purposes. But you're going to need it, even if it's the dead of summer. I bring a little cover just because you never know where air conditioning is. You get in the south, and it's or Phoenix, where air conditioning is serious. It can get cold in a hurry. A scarf. Again, I wore this today. I almost always pack a scarf. And I do that, gentlemen, this might not be for you, but maybe. European men wear a lot of scarves, actually, if you notice. But this can do double duty as well. If it's on the plane, I can throw it over my shoulders. If it's raining, I can throw it over my head. It can take this plain black sweater and dress it up if I need to. If I wear the sweater one day without the scarf and one day with the scarf, I look like I've got 2 outfits and I haven't done a thing other than put a scarf on. So I recommend that as well. We talked about a book, a tablet, or a game. I'm a girl who likes to read an old-fashioned book. I can't, the whole tablet thing is just beyond me. Back in the day, I would take those little handheld games just because they kill time on the plane, and sometimes, you just get tired of reading your book, but something to keep you occupied. Phone numbers and confirmations for your first stop. This might sound a little silly, and the reality is, as we make reservations online, we all have a computer printout or it's stored in our phone, like if you email stuff, or if you get stuff, confirmations back from your airline or your hotel or whatever, you probably got it in your email. You never know when your phone battery is going to die, so having it just there, to me, is not enough. I print out everything, one copy of everything I need to get to my first stop with my suitcase, so that if something happens between here and there, I can at least get that first step done, and then I'll have time to dive in and figure out what else I need. So I print, actually, as I was loading my bag for this today, I found things from my last trip. And what I found was, I was in Louisville during the polar vortex that you all experienced. I went to a conference, travel conference, and I got stuck in Louisville for 2 extra days because the airports were shut down. I couldn't get home. But what I found was my map of my hotel to the conference center. So I had a map. I knew how far it was. I knew how to get from A to B because I was going to fly in, get on a shuttle, get dropped at the conference center, and then I had to make my way to the hotel once I got there. So I print out a 1-page map, so if all else fails, my phone doesn't work, my GPS isn't working, there's nobody at the conference center to help me, I know how to get to my first stop. I also print out a phone number for the hotel, because that's the most important thing. They know I'm coming, they know who I am. If I have some trouble, they're a likely person to try and help me. I have my flight information. Yes, it was all in my phone. I had the ability to look it up at any time. I put a hard copy in my carry-on, not in my check bag, because again, that bag I may never see it again. You usually always see it again, by the way. If you lose your luggage, it's usually to you within like 12 hours, but my assumption is I'm never going to see it again. So I put a copy of this in so that if I do get stuck, if I do need to call the airline, if something happens, I have a way to get a hold of them. I've got my confirmation numbers. I know what's going on. I've got my hotel reservation. I've got proof that I paid it all. It's all right here. This doesn't take up any room at all in my computer bag, and so that's what I need. It's just good defense. And again, you never know when the electronics aren't going to work. This is my favorite topic, snacks. I pack snacks. I have been stuck in airports and in hotels more times than I care to know, and I refuse to pay $7 for a bottle of water, and I don't want, being able to grab a candy bar for me just doesn't work. Like, I need actual sustenance. If you're gonna be stuck for a while, and I don't always wanna, or am able to find a restaurant, it might be inconvenient from where you're at in the airport. I don't wanna eat the hot dog, because how many hot dogs can you eat? So I am vigilant about packing snacks. My husband laughs. He's like, oh my gosh, are you going for a month? And I'm like, well, you just never know. So I pack gum for the airplane. I pack hard candy for the airplane, just because it's entertaining. But I also pack little bags of, I pack granola bars, like good quality granola bars, with some protein and sometimes chocolate in them, because that can serve as a meal. I go through, this is silly, and this is left over from my last trip. It was in my desk drawer. This is my combination. I've got peanuts, and I've got a couple of M&Ms and some raisins. I probably had 10 of these in my bag. Literally. I put some in my suitcase. I put some in my carry-on. Because you just never know. And this is actual nutrition, and it'll tide you over until you can get to where you want to go, a little protein. The raisins serve double purpose, and we won't discuss it, but you know, it's good. It's good, I think, to have this stuff on hand. And then if you don't eat them, if you don't need them, you bring them home and you know, right? It's no harm, no foul. Sometimes I wonder what the TSA agents think as my bag goes through, because they must be like laughing at me, like, why is she packing all of this stuff? But there are times, like I was in Kentucky, like I said, I was there by myself. If the conference got over at 6 o'clock at night and it was dark, and I hadn't met anybody during the day to go have dinner with, my choice is to walk back to the hotel and find the hotel restaurant and eat by myself, which I do, but I don't always feel like it, or to wander around downtown by myself and find something to eat and then come back to my room in the dark, and I don't really know if that's a great idea. So there are times this is dinner, you know, this is just dinner because it's easier. And again, you're not in your own car sometimes, you don't have access to McDonald's or whatever, or you know, whatever would tide you over, and so I take snacking very seriously. And I have been stuck in airports often enough to know that it's a good idea, just from a pure financial, purely financial preservation kind of thing. Lip balm lotion I would include. The plane's always dry, and take the hard lip balm, not the liquid lip balm, because then you don't have to worry about the whole TSA liquid thing. We could talk about that right now, actually. When you fly, you are allowed, in your carry-on, a Ziploc bag of this size, and the official rule is 3-2-2. So 3 different things, 2 ounces each. That's what the official rules say. Some TSA agents will allow you to fill this bag up with as many things that will fit in it. But know that the rule is 3-2-2. This is my bag for my Kentucky trip. It is lip gloss, it's liquid, hand lotion, and hand sanitizer spray. That's all I take. I don't take conditioner and shampoo and my full-size perfume, and I don't actually take any of that. I just use whatever's at the hotel because I don't want to monkey with it. I don't want to deal with it. But this is, and it's in your bag. You have to take it out when you get to the airport. You put it in the little bin before you go to the TSA thing. Slam dunk. There you go. An empty water bottle. Again, if you're like me and don't want to pay for water, you can't take liquids through that TSA checkpoint. You can take an empty bottle and fill it on the other side from the water fountain, the bubbler, as we say here in Wisconsin. There are stations set up for that in most airports now. Sometimes you can get a collapsible water bottle, and that takes even less space in your carry-on. But when you pay literally $7 for a bottle of water at a convention center, it gets old in a hurry. Even if it is the company's dime, it gets old. All right, so that's my carry-on. I've got all that stuff in there. Here are some packing tips for your carry-on. Roll, don't fold. So fold your pants in half, fold them in half again, roll them tight, stick them in. It does save space, and it's easier to find things, I think, once you get to your destination. Heavy stuff at the bottom near the wheels. So when the suitcase is open, I put shoes and blue jeans and sweatshirts, heavy stuff down here, because when you stand it up, it all sinks to the bottom. Less wrinkles. Limit your shoes. Maybe, again, this is a ladies' problem more so than a men. I actually don't know how men travel with shoes, because I think that would be so complicated when you've got like a business outfit and a leisure outfit. It's hard. But wear the clunkiest things you have or the heaviest things you have to the airport, because they take up the most room in your suitcase. So if you're wearing them, you have more room in your suitcase. Don't wear your flip-flops. Wear the boots, right? It just makes sense. I know there are limitations to this, because it's not like you're going to wear your cowboy boots probably to Jamaica, but I wouldn't take cowboy boots to Jamaica, so that's not an issue. I also actually limit my color palette. So this might sound silly, but I am kind of a stickler about brown shoes with brown things and black shoes with black things, and I just don't take both of those wardrobes. I take a black wardrobe, and that's it. I don't mix and match any of that other stuff, so that I can get by with fewer shoes. Plastic bags. I usually toss a couple of like the bigger size, gallon size plastic bags, and maybe even some just like grocery store bags into my suitcase, because I never know what I need to bring home, and I find it advantageous to have those with me. If I do take hairspray or something that is not in my check bag now, or not in my carry-on, but in my check bag, I will put those in a Ziploc, just because should something happen and things explode, I don't want them to explode into my suitcase. But I also will include those bags for things that I want to bring home on the back end. So if I've got workout gear, for instance, and I rinse it and I try to make it as non-smelly as possible, but it might be damp or it might be stinky, I don't want that in the whole suitcase, so I'll throw it in a plastic bag, and that way it can make the safe, your dirty laundry, it can make the safe trip home without stinking up everything too much. So I don't know, I just find I'm always in need of a plastic bag. And as long as we're talking about stinky, you've got your shoes in there, you may be going someplace hot, you may be going, if you go like this time of year, you head south and you head to an all-inclusive resort, everything is damp. If you've ever been to places like that, the humidity is high, everything is damp, everything can smell kind of just wet doggish by the end of the trip. I toss a fabric softener sheet in that suitcase too, just because it makes everything smell better. What not to bring. This is important, I think. Pare down your purse or wallet. There is no need, there is no need for your checkbook. There is no need for your grocery store savings card. Your library card, bless the library, you just don't need it when you're on vacation. Our wallets are all big, right? They grow, our purses grow. You don't need all that stuff on vacation. Keep it as simple as possible. Leave all that stuff at home. If your purse gets stolen, you don't want all of it to go with it, right? You want as little as possible to get taken by whoever takes it. But it's just something else to carry around, and you just don't need it. What I do is I take my ID, whether that's my passport or my driver's license, depending on where I'm going. I take one credit card, and I take one debit card. Depending on where you're going, debit card may or may not be usable, so you got to do that checking. But that's it. That's all I take. Because if it gets stolen, I don't want to lose everything I have. I pare it down. Edit your lipstick collection. So here, I have one. It's going to work with every outfit I have. I don't need all of it. And that's true for anything in your purse. Whatever you've got multiples of, you only need one. And consider a small wristlet or a little purse. So this is my travel purse. Everything, my cell phone fits in here, and my one credit card, my passport. That's it. That's all that's in here. I don't have change. I have a little bit of cash for tipping. That's it. I put that inside this. So this is my purse, according to the airlines. This fits in here. This is now my purse. It's actually a backpack, so I can shove all kinds of things that I buy on the road inside of it to bring it home. And I don't have to do anything with it while I'm out. My hands are free. I can be paying it. It's safe. Nobody's going to get into my backpack without me knowing. Or a little crossbody bag would be the same thing. You know, you want to think about safety and protecting yourself. That's how I go. It is my one carry-on. I usually have to travel with a computer, so that's my other, you're allowed 2 bags at most airlines, my computer bag and this. But once I get to the destination, I'm done with this because I'm not carrying this around while I'm touring. I'm carrying this around. This will even fit in a pocket in a pinch. So that's my plan. Now, the older I get, the harder it is because I need to carry glasses these days, and that it becomes a little bit of a struggle, but I try. What not to bring? Well, what to bring? You have to bring your medications. Yes, you have to bring medications. Never, under any circumstance, put them in your checked bag. Again, that checked bag could disappear. You want to see those again. You need to see those again, so do not put them in your checked bag. Put those in your carry-on. The original containers, of course, are best. And take a little extra just in case you're going to get stuck. Don't count out the number of pills for the number of days you're going to be gone. If you get stuck for an extra day and you really need that medication, you're going to want to make sure that you have it. I was in an airport in Colorado once on the way home. Flights got canceled. There was a woman, we had to sleep in the airport. There was a woman pleading her case to the gate agent about how she needed her bag because it had her insulin in it, and she had to have her insulin, and she had to have her insulin. Or, you know, it was dire straits. She had to have her insulin. And there was, yes, there are ways they can help you, but I would never want to be in that situation. Like that's a terrible feeling. I don't want to go through that. And they were going to help her the best they could, but you know, the whole airport's in chaos because it's weather. Like, it's just, keep it with you. Just keep it with you. It's so much easier. What not to bring? Jewelry. If you go to the all-inclusive and you're planning on a really fancy dinner one night with you and your husband and you want to get all dressed up, you know, to the nines or whatever, it's easy to want to take fancy jewelry with you. The reality is, if you take fancy jewelry, you have to keep track of the fancy jewelry. I don't take hardly any because I don't want to have to worry about it. This is the wedding ring I take when I travel. It's a little silver band. It's all there is. I don't take anything else because I don't want to have to worry about it. I like to take my rings off at night. I don't like to sleep with them, and so I don't want them on the counter, even with me in the room, because you just never know. I also don't want to be flashing anything. Not that my ring is flashy. I'm not saying that at all. But if it was, if I had a great big rock, I would also probably not want to be flashing that around wherever I am because it leaves me open to things I maybe don't want to have any part in. So I leave everything at home. Like I do with my outfits, they're only black. I only have 1 or 2 pairs of shoes. I wear the same earrings every day. If I take a couple extra pair and I throw them in a little zip-top bag, they are cheap earrings. They're mix and match. You'll see me in the same earrings, and if that bothers you, well, sorry. You'll see me in the same darn earrings every day. Oops. There we go. So leave your fanciest stuff at home. Take only a few things, and never take anything you're not willing to lose, because whether somebody steals it or you just misplace it, it doesn't matter. You know. And then leave a little extra room. Leave a little extra room. Don't pack your bag so full that you can't anything else, because that takes all the fun out of every gift shop you're going to stop in between here and there. And let's face it, if you've been on a Van Galder trip, ladies, you know at every attraction there's a gift shop, right? And you want to have some room to bring that home. All right, here's a few little extra tips. One, assume prices are higher everywhere else. I love traveling with my mom because she's such a sweetheart. We'll get to the restaurant or whatever, and she'll order a beer because she's from Wisconsin, and it's Friday night, and by God, she's going to have a beer, and they'll charge her $8 for it, and she'll be like, oh my gosh, can you believe it was an $8? Yes, every city, every big city for sure, and just about any place where they're getting tourists in, everything's going to be more expensive than it is at home. That's just the reality, so plan for that. This is one of my favorites. No matter where you are, you can spot people from Wisconsin like that. They travel with their Badgers and Packer gear everywhere, and there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with it because we're proud of it. But if you don't want to be identified as a tourist, your accent will give you away, by the way. The cab driver will know where you're from. Every time a cab driver asks you where you're from, he or she already knows. They've already talked to you, they've already heard your voice, and they're testing themselves to see if they're right. I always throw that question back at them, and I say, you tell me where I'm from, and they're always right. They can pick Wisconsin up like that. But if you don't want to be identified as a tourist, you might want to leave that stuff at home. Again, my mom, she loves to wear her Packer stuff and her Badger stuff because she wants people to know where she's from. And if you're ever in Vegas on a football Sunday, it is super easy to identify where everybody is from because they're all wearing their colors. Be smart about your purse, your wallet, your passport. You're going to keep those things with you at all times. Never walk around with your purse unzipped. Keep your purse next to your body, like those crossbody bags. Even one on your arm out here is a little more dangerous than one that's tucked in. Gentlemen, you know, we always say wear your wallet in your front pocket, not your back pocket. Just be smart about it. You don't have to be afraid to be in the big city, but you have to understand that not every place is like Janesville or my hometown is Fort Atkinson. You know, I wouldn't think twice about walking away at a restaurant with my bag on the table, and it'd be fine, but that's not true everywhere. Wear shoes with socks to the airport. Now, this might be just me, but I am freaky about my bare feet on gross floors. It's just a thing for me. I don't like it. Even in a hotel, I don't walk barefoot across the carpet because I can only imagine what's happened on the carpet before me. It just woogs me out. So I wear a lot of socks on vacation. But when you get to the airport, if you are under a certain age, you have to take shoes off to go through the TSA thing. Again, the thought of walking barefoot through that little landmine grosses me out, so I always wear socks to the airport. Always, always, always. And shoes that are easy to take on and off, to be honest, because that can be kind of a challenge. Bring a hands-free purse. We already talked about that. Carry some small bills for tipping. That's part of that first, until you get to your first stop and can kind of sort things out. It's probably a good idea to have a few singles, a few $5 bills for your cab driver, for your bus driver, for your, the person that's going to handle your bags once you get to the airport. Email the ticket info and hotel reservation stuff to yourself. Again, this is to keep it in your phone, so you've got that electronic copy. Give a copy of your itinerary and your passport to someone at home. I make sure that my family knows what hotel I'm staying at, when I intend to be there, so that they have information. Should we get wires crossed? Should, example, during 9/11, when 9/11 happened, I had employees in the air on their way to conferences. They got rerouted everywhere because, if you remember, the planes had to land like right now. I had a guy end up in Omaha, Nebraska, on his way to Denver, but they landed in Omaha, and they didn't know what was going on. They just got off the plane, like, we have to land was kind of all they told them. They had to get off the plane. They walked out into the concourse and started looking for TVs because they didn't know what was going on, just so people know where you are and where you're going to be, because you just never know what's going to happen. And funny story, in that case, if you remember how scary that was, I mean, that was terribly scary for everybody. This particular gentleman, bless his heart, they landed in Omaha. Omaha couldn't handle all of the people that were set down in Omaha because it was last minute and it was kind of chaotic. And they eventually farmed them out to as many hotels as they could farm them out to, and they all got in. The hotels weren't ready, the restaurants weren't ready. There was no rental cars. You couldn't get anywhere. He got stuck for a few days. The hotels were serving what I'm going to call, uncharmingly, slop lines. They'd fill up big buffet lines, and it was like, here's your spoonful of gruel for the day, because it was hard. It was chaos, and nobody knew what was going on. Well, he couldn't get a rental car to come home, and so he ended up in a U-Haul. He found a U-Haul because after a couple of days, it's like you just want to get home, and so he had the foresight to call U-Haul. He got a U-Haul, and we're like, yes, please, just get home. Do whatever you got to do. Company pays for it. Just get home. Because we didn't know when he was going to be able to fly again or any of that. The conference had shut down. It was a moot point. He just needed to get home. So he gets his U-Haul, and he goes out to the he's very clever. He goes out to the U-Haul, and he's kind of grinning. He's like, I'm going to drive this U-Haul home, right? And so being kind of a jokester, he whips open the back of the truck, and he's going to put his suitcase in the back of the truck because he thinks that's funny. As long as he's got the whole U-Haul, why not put your suitcase in the back? And he said, I shut the door, and all of a sudden I thought, given what's going on in the world today, right now, if I get pulled over in a U-Haul and I've got one mysterious black bag in the back, might not be my best play. Might not be my best play. So he took it out of the back and put it in the front with him, but he did get home. He did get home. You just never know. Notify your credit card company and maybe your cell phone company of your destination to make sure that your credit cards will work, that they don't think that they've been stolen. If you don't ever go anywhere and all of a sudden you're racking up charges in Denver, they may put a stop on your credit card, so let them know. Cell phone is the same thing. Don't assume your cell phone's going to work wherever you're going. It just doesn't, especially if you're going overseas, especially if you're heading to an island. It just doesn't work, so know what your coverage plan is, or know how much. It might work, but it might have all kinds of charges that you aren't aware of, so keep that in mind. And then, in the end, have a good time, because that's what it's about, right? If you can take all the worry out of all this other stuff, the actual trip becomes a whole lot more fun. So, that's it. Do you have any questions? Can we just talk about cool trips and where we've been and what we've done? Because that would be more fun. Best trip you've ever been on? Not Van Gelder, anywhere. Hawaii. Yeah. That sounds wonderful.
January.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. How about you? Where have you?
Cheap vacation.
Cheap
okay?
vacation? I'm good.
We went from Portland, Maine. We flew to New York City, and then from New York City to Jamaica. But there had been a storm. It was in the wintertime.
Yeah.
There had been a storm hit Portland, right?
Yeah.
So they were overbooked.
Uh-huh.
So both of us got a free ticket to anywhere.
Perfect.
We ended up in New York, and New York was also on the same path.
Yeah.
They made us delay there.
Yeah.
And they only gave us $300 a piece there. We ended up in Jamaica, and the place was loaded because they couldn't get people out.
Right.
So we abandoned the so-called tour, which was a week.
Yeah.
And they gave us cash on hand, and we went.
You made money on that trip.
We sort of did our own thing. One of the things I think which you have not said the word,
all right,
but you've said everything else around it, is if you're going to travel, be willing to assimilate.
Yes.
If you're going to New York City or you're going to Jamaica, right? If you're going to spend a tourist dollar, it's going to be much more efficient to sell that tourist dollar in a small place where people live.
Yep.
Go to Rio de Janeiro and live up on the side of the hill.
Right.
You're going to have a lot more fun.
Yep.
You're going to meet a lot more really neat people.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I have family in Mexico, and so I have done Resort Mexico, and I've done Real Mexico.
Yep.
And I love them both. They serve different purposes. They serve different purposes. If I want to go check out for a week, not think about anything, have somebody bring me drinks, I'm going to go to Resort Mexico and enjoy it, and it's great. But it's an entirely different experience than Real Mexico, and being able to see a mountain bike race through the city of Tasco where the bikes go through the houses, and where it's an entirely different experience. Much more affordable sometimes to do the real thing, and a much better perspective on how daily life is, what these people are really like, how you really live.
As far as traveling is concerned, one of the things we did, this is back in the 70s and 80s, is there's a big department store in Boston, and they have a basement, and it's a basement where you can buy anything for a lot less money, and they have a travel agency in there. And we used to call them up every once in a while and see whether they had any special deals.
Yeah.
And their special deals would be like your Van Gelder people, right? You've got 60 people going up to who knows where, right? And 2 of them cancel out at the last time.
Right.
I call you up and I say, hey, that trip to thing, you got any space? And then we start negotiating.
Right,
Okay.
it's all negotiable.
Well, that's part of assimilation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Filene's basement, I heard over here, right? Yep, that's it. And I would recommend if you have tour companies that you like to deal with, or airlines or hotels or whatever, sign up for their emails because they will offer those last minute deals. And you have to be flexible, you have to be willing to go when you can go. It's not, it doesn't always work, but even us, we will take a wait list for a full tour because you never know when somebody is going to cancel at the last minute. That's absolutely true. And I love that if you're willing to take that bump, if you're willing to roll with it, and it doesn't work if you've got a schedule and you have to be back by a certain day. It's always not convenient, but heck yeah, why not get another vacation out of the deal, right?
I mean, how much fun is it to be, really, if you're assimilating, right? How much fun is it to be in New Orleans for an extra 4 days?
Right? Yes. Yes. I learned all kinds of things on that trip. I learned so much on that trip. Aside from the terror part, once we got past the terror part, it was fascinating. It was a fascinating deal. All right. Well, I think my time is over. I thank you. If you have any questions, I'm going to stick around for a minute, and we'd love to see you at Van Gelder, but really enjoy the world because it's a wonderful place. It's really a wonderful place. Thanks.
Thank you.